So now we are ready for gluing the paper onto the board. What you need for that is you need your paper, you need your board. You also are going to need the mixture of the PVA glue with methyl cellulose, and I will give you special instructions on how to do that in a separate separate video, separate instructions. So, but basically, after you mix your methyl cellulose with PVA glue, you will get this mixture which you can work with. So the methyl cellulose is by itself is very weak adhesive, but people usually add it on into the PVA glue to slow down the drying, and also it extends the quantity of PVA glue. PVA tends to be quite expensive. Methyl cellulose costs less. So you know, there's two things that come out is good from this. You slow down the drying and you extend the amount of the glue that you use. So I'm going to use that. Also, if you don't have the methyl cellulose, it's okay to use the PVA glue. Do not dilute it with water. Use it as is. It's already pre-mixed. If you dilute it with water, all it is, it's you are weakening the glue and it's just going to buckle up your paper more. So I'm going to use this mixture of the Jade 403, which is the PVA glue. It's the same thing as this. And I'm using 70% of that, and I'm using 30% of methyl cellulose. So that's the mixture that I made for myself. I'm going to need several sheets of newsprint. Do several of them. Do like 4 or 5 of them, just in case. And then I'm going to start gluing. I'm going to use the brush. These round brushes are great for PVA and they distribute glue really well. So I'm going to start working it in. Always use it from the center out and work really fast. This is a fast process. If you have a fan blowing or something like this, you might want to turn that off because it will dry your glue really, really fast. In addition to this, you're going to need scissors or knife, and you're going to need a bone folder. You can see that the layer that I'm applying is thin, but there is glue on it, so I don't want it to be drying out. All right. Put my brush away. And then I'm going to put the board in. As I mentioned before, there's a little bit of eyeballing going on in here, so we allocated about 1 inch around it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm eyeballing an inch around the whole thing, and I'm placing it down and just kind of pushing it a little bit so it adheres. Now it's time to fold this up. In order to fold this, I need to cut my corners. The way I usually cut them, I take a knife and slide my newsprint off onto the cutting mat, and what I normally do is I create a little curve around this. You might see in some book demos that they take straight cut like this and then they fold. I want to allocate it just a little bit of a curve, not much, but just slight curve for this. Another thing is that I want to compensate for the thickness of the board, so I don't ever want to cut close to the board. I don't want to cut here. I want to cut about 1 thickness of the board out. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, if it doesn't want to cut like this, just pick up a pair of scissors and do it. So I'll try. The knife has to be pretty sharp for this. And also the paper, if it doesn't cooperate, then it won't do it. Well, this one did. And what I do is usually just flip it down and glue it. And do all 4 corners like that. I do the curve, so when I fold it, you'll see it in a second. When I fold the book, it actually, the sides overlap a little bit and they cover it. I also have this little rag handy. It's damp cloth, just to wipe my hands off. So next thing I want to do is I want to pick up my page, pick up this with the bone folder and just fold it from the bottom. Just give it a little fold and fold it this way. This is a handmade paper, hand dyed with natural dye, so some of it is going to come off. That's okay. This is a little drier than I want it to be, so I'm going to apply some more glue. What's neat about PVA glue is if it dries out like this, especially on the cloth, and if it's too late to put extra glue on it, you can always hit it with the iron and iron it out. Here's the important part. I'm going to fold this side. I'm going to turn it 180 degrees, and I'm going to fold this side like that, and then out. So make sure that you burnish the whole thing down. There's no bubbles left underneath. The air bubbles are bad for this. And the next thing, what I want to do is when I'm folding it, I want to tuck in this corner so it's folded in and it kind of wraps around the corner, and then I fold. And the same thing with this. I want to tuck in the corner, and I usually use the bone folder for that. Just push it in like that and then fold. And this paper is pretty forgiving. There's some papers that are harder to work with. The ones that, for example, like Canson paper, really thicker papers, they're harder to fold with. It's possible, but then you have to do it with more precision. This one is a little bit more forgiving, and I love how handmade the whole thing looks. So just fold these corners a little bit in, and then fold this. So definitely have this rag around so you can wipe the glue. The glue either seeps through or seeps underneath, so that's okay as long as it's not on the front cover and as long as it's not visible right here on the 1/4 inch edge margin. So this cover is ready, and you can see how it's nice and flat here. If you see any bubbles on top here, which is very rare, you can puncture them with the needle, sewing needle, and just squeeze the bubbles out. Or you can also put a piece of paper and burnish this down. Repeat for your second cover as well. Now that we have glued 2 covers, we have to attach a ribbon in the back cover. This one is going to be front, this one is going to be back. The ribbons are attached to the back of the book cover. So here's how you do it. You will need some newsprint again. This is front. I'm going to just mark it as front. Front. This is back. I want my ribbons to be somewhere in the middle of my cover. So let's say if this is 6.5 inches or around that. So I'm going to go 3 inches and 3/4. 3 3/4 of an inch. So right here. And right here. So this is, I just marked it, and this is where my ribbons are gonna go. For this small cover, you can actually just cut one long ribbon and enclose it, but you can also glue it in separately. There is a shiny part and there is a matte part, so I want the shiny part out, like this, outside, so when I tie it, the shiny part is going to be visible. For some ribbons, you can just glue them, but if the ribbon is pretty thick, like some of the ribbons that I have a lot of thickness to them, like this one for example, what you want to do is you want to cut a little groove in here, and that's what I will do. I will mark this. The ribbon will be less visible this way. So what I want to do is I want to start at about a 1/4 inch from here, because the ribbon is going to start right here. And just cut out a little groove for it. This is the advanced extra technique. So, but I thought I would show this to you. So, and then you can take out some of the chipboard in here along with paper, but then cut it a little bit inwards, more than 3/4 of an inch, so maybe like a little bit more, like this much. So this way, when you put the ribbon in, you glue it in, and the paper is going to be on top of it. The ribbon is not going to be so obvious. You can just put it in the groove like that. So let's do it. For that, you want to use the PVA glue. My bottle is a little dried up, so I'm going to just pour it out like this. And put glue right here. So you glue your ribbon in. And the same thing for this side. So let's do an experiment. Let's just see what one works. Let's just glue it directly in here. And see what works. I will later glue this cover in, but together with this covers, the next assemblage would be to do this. I need to tuck this under and glue it like that. So when I fold it, this top gonna come down.